Well, air travel is seeing a turbo boost, according to the World Airport Traffic Report by Airports Council International. Global air travel is expected to reach 9.8 billion passengers this year. That's a 3.7% jump year over year. But U.S. airlines and aviation groups are now warning the government shutdown could disrupt flights and strain the system. A recent letter from the Modern Skies Coalition to the heads of Congress writes this: government shutdowns harm the U.S. economy and degrade the redundancies and margins of safety that our national airspace system is built upon. In fact, short-term shutdowns, as just a few days, even threatened shutdowns that are averted in the 11th hour, do negatively affect the NAS and the traveling public. I want to bring in live in our studio today the Point Sky founder, Brian Kelly, a longtime friend of our network. So let's first talk about this. The last time we had a shutdown, it was 2018 and 2019. It was 35 days. And if you remember at the time, all of a sudden, TSA agents were calling in sick. Air traffic controllers started to call in sick. There was a ground stop at LaGuardia. Yep. Right after that, then President Trump said, getting involved, opened it back up the government. And he did. Do you think we're going to get there?
Well, I'm concerned. So, yeah, and the air traffic system in 2019 is nowhere near as busy as it is today. And as we've seen this year, you know, our air traffic control system is fragile. They're overworked. We don't have enough air traffic controllers out there. And so our system today is much more fragile and busy than it was in 2019. And it was travel that ultimately got so many people upset that they demanded the government to, to end the shutdown. But as we're seeing now, there's no real, there's going to be no votes this weekend. There's no real end in sight, and there could be, potentially catastrophic.
Well, Airlines for America, of course, the group that represents many of the major carriers, says that the system, and this is a quote, the system may need to be slowed down. They're saying if it's even just a few more days than short term, this goes into next week. What do you think that means, slowing the system down?
I mean, less flights. Just like with the Newark situation that happened earlier this year, those air traffic controllers were stressed out. There were a whole host of issues. They actually had to stop, flights into Newark. There were scheduling changes. So this will be headache for travelers. And generally, the New York City metro area is the busiest travel hub. That's where they're going to start cutting flights. And that's, really going to create an issue for a lot of people.
What about the FAA? They furloughed about 11,000 FAA employees. I mean, they're saying, of course, those are non-essential workers, but
it's not good. No matter how you slice it, their support staff. Look, they're the infrastructure of our air traffic control. So no matter what, there's going to be negative effects. There is no positive to this. The FAA has said that they're going to continue hiring and training new air traffic controllers. But that's maybe a Band-Aid on a dam, that's happening. I highly encourage people TSA lines will get longer sooner. Get TSA pre-check if you don't have already. Get global entry. I actually just took my son today to the New York City global entry office. Those government offices are still open. Get that now before the lines in the airports.
And Clear has gotten better.
Clear has gotten so much better. They now have e-gates where you don't even have to see security people. And there are a lot of credit cards out there that give you free global entry and Clear. So I highly recommend that. What
are you seeing as far as the industry overall, like the trends? Because this seems to be a year where Americans are getting more nervous about their pocketbooks. They're kind of, they're not booking their flights as well in advance. They're kind of waiting. Yep. And then even in lodging, we're seeing that story kind of play out as well.
But rates are still going up. So net, this holiday season, we're going to see an increase in travel, airfare up about 6 to 7% domestic and international. So there's still extreme growth. People are spending a lot. They're going to Asia. They're going to Fiji, Europe. So this summer, because of tariffs, consumers booked later. But the numbers, we still had record travel numbers, and we will set records this fall unless this shutdown continues.
What about the holidays? Because usually you think, okay, I've got to get ahead of it. But I was reading on this on your website. I am a subscriber. I'm just going to own that right now. And I remember you writing in your newsletter that we wait till end of October, beginning of November for Christmas.
For Christmas, and this week is over the next 7 days is generally the best for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So but always go to Google Flights. You can set alerts. But when you see airfare start ticking up on a route you're watching, book it because it generally goes up more than it goes down.
Yeah, you also do a lot of work on your site with credit cards, which I think is fascinating. And I see a lot of with those Chase cards and others. I mean, American Express. That business, how is that business right now, do you think? I mean, because there's a lot of competition.
Yeah, they all raised annual fees this year on the premium cards, but the general consumer sentiment, the credit card companies now have lounges, and their points are more valuable than any airline card. So I still recommend getting those transferable points cards. The Amex Gold, I think, is a top one, 4X on dining and groceries, which is what we spend a lot of money on. Chase Sapphire, their lounges are beautiful. So like my dad said, cheap is expensive. The no annual fee cards, except for Bilt, are generally not worth it. Those premium cards, they have a lot of points, but also perks that you should look into.
Absolutely. Let's talk about global travel, because we've seen a little bit. I mean, look, we've got some serious issues happening around the world. We've got wars happening in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe. At the same time, have Americans started to pull back on global travel? Because what we saw after the pandemic was this rush to get out of the country. And it lasted for a couple, 3 years, but a lot of folks were using credit cards to pay for these trips. Are you seeing that change this year, that story?
It's changing. So after the pandemic, Europe was crazy. European flights were like $10,000. It's now, Europe is still very popular, but instead of just everyone going to Italy, now we're seeing people go more to Croatia and budding destinations like Albania. Morocco is a huge new destination. And then Asia. People are now comfortable traveling again to Asia, maybe not China as much, but South Korea, Japan, Thailand are huge destinations. So people are still traveling internationally and spending more. They're just spreading the love than just going to Europe.
That makes sense. Because what do you think the next big, I guess, storyline is going to be in the travel industry? I mean, look, obviously the shutdown is one that we're talking about today with you. But, look, there's been some consolidation in the airline industry in particular. I'm thinking about Spirit and, JetBlue, all the things, these mergers. Are the margins tightening for the airlines? Do you think the competition has gotten so intense? Do you think that we're going to see less airlines in the U.S.?
Unfortunately, and we're seeing consolidation in Europe as well. The airline industry, they're not making that much money. It's not a great business to be in. Even, Delta's making the most money because they have co-brands and credit cards. So the airlines that didn't invest in first class and credit cards like Spirit, JetBlue to an extent, they're struggling. So it's not a great business to be in. I think there will be consolidation, and I do think that will inevitably raise prices. But overall, airfare is still affordable when you look at it and when you adjust it for inflation. So especially now that you can use your points more than ever before, there's so many ways to earn points that, I'm still optimistic in general about travel, and it is still accessible and very safe.
You also write a lot about the programs and about that fight for like status levels. There's Facebook groups devoted to it, by the way.
Yes.
I might be in a couple of them. Brian Kelly, it's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.